That's right. We're going to do a little introduction to Welcome to the Kindness Chronicles, where once again we hope to inject the world with a dose of the Minnesota nice, Minnesota kindness that it desperately needs. Welcome back, gentlemen. We got Michael Dempsey in the basement studio.
Good to be here.
Yeah.
Good to be here.
He's wearing that fanciful hat. Feels very European.
Yeah.
Steve Brown. Hello, Steve.
Hi.
Got Jeff back there.
Hey, everyone.
KG's on assignment. And we've got an authentic, a for real Irishman with us with a fantastic head of hair. Look at the hair on that guy.
Well, let's officially invite our friend in before we
start
gives it away.
Throwing compliments in his direction.
Yeah.
This is the Kindness Chronicles,
It
and I
is.
wanted to just compliment on what a lovely look he has.
This is our St. Patrick's Day special.
Yeah.
Our week, St. Patrick's Day week. We're going to
Yeah.
try to, touch on Irish kindness and all things Irish and the celebration of
We're
the
gonna
week.
do some Irish dancing.
So today, on the Kindness Chronicles, we're celebrating St. Patrick's Day a little differently. Not just green shirts and shamrocks and all that stuff, but the heart behind the heritage. Our guest is one of my dear new friends, Irish friend, Mr. John Cosgrove, a man who embodies Irish wit, warmth, and wisdom. Today we're exploring what Americans get wrong about Ireland, whether luck is real or overrated, and what kindness looks like from Dublin to Minnesota. Is Irish warmth real or romanticized? I don't know if we're gonna get into all this, but we're gonna keep trying. Is it luck or grit?
Is this a long introduction?
And what might America learn from Ireland about hospitality, humor, and humanity? John Cosgrove, welcome to the Kindness Chronicles.
Wow, thank you. Is that what applause sounds like?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know it's canned, but I'll take it. If I could get a nip of that, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, we have to pipe it in. Welcome to the show, John. You have talked to both me and Mr. Dempsey on your podcast, The Crafty
That
Rogue.
is correct.
Yeah, I keep checking
Yeah.
my emails for an invitation, but
Yeah,
whatever.
we haven't
That's
seen
fine.
that.
I'm probably the only one that's ever written a check to you, but that's okay. We're fine.
We
Do you remember you did a show for me, John? You did a little quiz thing a couple of years ago. Steve introduced me
That's
to
right.
you.
Now you are the only one that's written
That's
me a
right.
check, by the way.
You cheap
That-
SOB.
although Dempsey bought me breakfast once, so
Thank
that's
you.
There you
Yeah,
go.
that's
There
right.
you go.
And you know, buying breakfast, that's the cheapest meal you can buy for
Listen,
somebody.
I think
That's
I bought
smart.
you breakfast one time too, John.
Hopefully.
One time.
Hopefully.
One
There's a
time.
kindness tip right there. So John and I have seen music together, and we share. He's got great interest and taste in music, but John has all kinds of interesting things about him that I want to. John, can you introduce yourself and tell us what you're about, what you do, and where you're from? We want to get really into the Irish aspect of who you are.
Well, I'm one of those rare Irish people in Minnesota that came directly to Minnesota.
Right.
I didn't come via New York or via Philadelphia or San Francisco. I came straight to Minnesota, which is rare.
Yeah.
A lot of the Irish diaspora that's here in Minnesota, a lot of them came from somewhere else first in the United States or Canada, unless they work with someone like Boston Scientific or Medtronic. But I came direct in the summer of '99, and I was initially coming for 2 weeks, and I ended up staying. Here I am 27 years later. And when I first arrived, of course, like most paddies off the boat, it's okay, I can call them paddies. I went to the pub and met Kieran Folliard, who is essentially the Irish godfather here in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And I started working for him for the summer and ended up working for him for about 6 or 7 years. And in the middle of that, he was a great mentor and said to me, you know, the difference between here and Ireland is this is the land, it's called the land of opportunity. You are pretty white, so you've got a lot of stuff laid out for you already. And they kind of like the Irish accent. So use that to open doors. It won't always keep the door open, but it'll definitely open the door.
Sure.
And think about what you want to do. So I paid attention while I was still working at his pub, and I put in long shifts there. And it was when I'll tell you how it started. He said, we're coming up to St. Patrick's Day, as we are right now. And as a pub owner, it's a very lucrative time of year.
Mm-hmm.
He said, and I quote, "Let's try and squeeze a few more dollars out of these Yanks this year."
Well, that's not very kind.
Hey, John.
Well,
John, can
in
I?
the best possible way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course. And either we come up with 11 new saints and open 12 days of the year, or we have other ideas. What can we come up with? And so, of course, the Irish are known for storytelling and hospitality and what we call crack, which is the Gaelic word, which it basically means fun. But it is fun when my mother still says, "Was there much crack in the pub last night?"
Yeah.
Or was that wedding much crack? But we decided to have a quiz night, which was unheard of back then. And he was looking for someone to host. And I stuck my hand up and I said, "Well, I read at church once." He said, "Perfect. If it's not going well, you can always say, 'This is the word of the Lord,' and you'll get their attention." So that set me on a journey of when after I did my first quiz night and I got those kind of responses, I'm like, okay, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And that has led me on this curious little path. Because the other thing he said to me is, don't worry about your passions. That's for the Tony Robbinsons of the world talking on infomercials and late night TV. Follow your curiosity and see where it takes you. You don't have to know all the answers. You don't have to have everything lined up. Just be curious. And this is before being curious was like a hip, thing for people to do. So over the last 20 odd years, I've followed a curiosity and I hosted quizzes. The quizzes got bigger. I needed technology to help facilitate those bigger quizzes. I worked with some interesting mother-dwelling, minivan driving, Dorito munching developers and developed some technology that then became a thing of its own. So I've always approached things with curiosity. I've had a podcast for 9 years. It's on sabbatical because my other businesses are pretty busy. And all the while I'm having fun, I'm meeting interesting people. And just today, before this call, I was on a Zoom call with some people in Chicago, because Chicago is a very strong Irish town where there would be a lot of Irish natives. And I had never really tried to crack, for want of a better word, that Chicago market. But there's a whole world there that, is full of possibility. So I really enjoyed living in Minnesota for the last 27 years. And because I have brothers that have lived in other cities, simply because I've had to assimilate. There are not a lot of Irish people in Minnesota, so we're a bit of a novelty. So the onus is on us to assimilate with Minnesota, rather than if I went to Chicago, I could find a huge diaspora group and I wouldn't have to assimilate. So I'm grateful that I've had to assimilate here and still have people saying things like Bigara and top of the morning and drinking green beer and all that other nonsense.
Hey, just super quick. I want to go back to the beginning. John, why you made mention of coming right to Minnesota? What tell us, were you back home in Ireland? You looked at a map, you said, I have to get out of town and I will go. You threw a dart. Why Minnesota?
My brother Seamus, as I like to say, he got the cool name, I got the personality. He was in staying with relatives. We have a bunch of relatives in the East Coast. He was staying there for the summer working, and he decided, because he's also a curious lad, he decided to explore a little bit of the United States, and he had a few minor connections with Minnesota, and he came to Minneapolis. When he came back to Ireland, he talked a lot about Minneapolis, how impressed he was with it. And I was itching to get away. The rain in Ireland is incessant. I will tell you that there is a famous meme where an American tourist says to a young lady, "Does it ever stop raining in Ireland?" And she said, "How would I know? I'm only 7." So that tells you how much it rains. And he said, "You should go check out Minneapolis. I think you'd fit in well there." And how prophetic of him to say such a thing. So that was my first sort of inkling about going to Minneapolis.
You got some good advice right away about curiosity and about, that's
So
nice
you
path.
mentioned the godfather of Irish people in Minnesota. Kieran, is that from Kieran's Pub?
Yes,
I assume,
Kieran's
see how I did
Pub.
that?
Then
I
he
made
opened
that
the local.
connection.
Then he started Two Gingers Whiskey after he was
Oh.
we were the number one seller of Jameson whiskey in the world 4 years in a row.
Jeez.
Is that right?
That is right. If you go
Yeah.
into the local
Yep.
downtown, you'll see 4 plates on the floor directly from Jameson, or as we call it, Jamison.
That's what
acknowledging the
I
fact
call
for
it.
4 years in a row, we were the number one seller of Jameson in the world in Minneapolis.
Before
picture-
Steve, you start getting your questions, I have a couple of questions
Yeah,
related to the bar scene, the pub scene in the Twin Cities. Obviously, Kieran's is probably right at the top of that list, but are there other Irish establishments that are worthy of calling themselves Irish establishments?
Good question. Of course, the Dubliner in St. Paul is pretty iconic because the owner is from Kerry. So, of course, he'd call it the Dubliner. And they pride themselves on their music and the quality of their pints. The quality of the pints are always going to be a measure. And, of course, we live in a time now when there's less alcohol consumption. The Gen Zs of the world are drinking less alcohol because they're more health conscious, which is not a bad thing. However, of course, in Irish pubs, it's more than just drinking, it's community and a place to gather. And the Dubliner does a great job with that. Is it, St. Paul being a traditionally more blue collar community, working class, fits well in with the Irish narrative, and gatherings there reflect that. Couple of my favorites, there's a place in Northeast Minneapolis called the Anchor, and it's called the Anchor Fish and Chips. And they established themselves as a place to go for fish and chips, but they serve quality pints there too. And about 6 years ago, a pastor in South Minneapolis decided to open a pub. Now, he didn't call it an Irish pub. He called it a public house. It's called the Prodigal because of his background in the Lord's work. And I would say by accident, and I've said this to him, Jeff, the owner, and he's become a very, very good friend of mine. I've said, the main reason this pub works so well is that you and your wife, Randy, have no idea what you're doing. But you are willing to put it out there every day and say that. And because of that, people are drawn to it. There's nothing sort of characterizes this place as being staged or anything other than authentic. And ironically, every Irish pub in every city in the US and beyond will say, we're an authentic Irish pub. If you have to say it, then we have to
fishy.
question
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
The Prodigal will never use the word authentic. You will know.
I want
it
to follow
by-
up with that, but
by
you go
visiting.
first.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the place I'm about to describe would be considered an authentic, but they certainly have leaned into the Irish side of things with the name of the establishment. And I have a dear friend that owns this place, and my 2 boys both work there. So be careful how you respond
No
to
bias
this, John.
there, huh?
Patrick McGovern's in St. Paul is owned by friends of ours, and let's just say that on St. Patrick's Day specifically, there is chaos there like you cannot imagine. I think I once mentioned that my son Jack on the podcast.
Oh, yeah,
I mentioned
you did.
that
You did. We were all
he
here.
was bringing the garbage out at the end of the night, and there was a couple having fun with each other in the dumpster. In the dumpster. So if that ain't authentic Irish pub, I don't. What
It's a
is
wild
a
night.
quality pint?
Well, that's what I want to ask about. So,
Well, I asked already. What's
Well-
a quality pint?
well, hold on. Let's just go through this. We're talking about pub culture in Ireland. I want to kind of hear it from him with regards to hospitality and community and music. Tell us what the elements of a good Irish pub are coming from Ireland and comparing to Minnesota.
I thought John just covered it. It's making out in the dumpster.
That's the qualifying right there.
It takes me back to that old Irish song, "Ain't Love Rubbish." But anyway, I would say, forget about the stereotypes.
Yeah.
because obviously in Ireland, they're not setting out to be an Irish pub. They're just setting out to be a public house, a place where the public gathers. And the elements that will differentiate one public house from another will be the quality of the pints, for sure, because if your pub gets a bad name,
well, what does a quality pint mean? Like how it's poured, or just
how it's poured and how it tastes and the temperature and I mean, there's not many things that the Irish are known for worldwide, but beer is definitely one of them. So let's make sure that what we're producing and what is representing our deep and rich culture. Because remember, we are an indigenous people. There's only 3 indigenous groups in all of Europe: Ireland, the Sami, and the Basque. So if we're going to have something that's representing an indigenous people, let's make sure that it represents it well. And you know, we're obviously not known for our cuisine, but that's nothing to do. It's not because we didn't have access. Well, it's mainly because we didn't have access to it. And I know this is the Kindness Chronicles, and I'm not going to get into the great failures of British colonialism, but we have historically taken very limited resources and made great use of them. So that extends to the pub as well. We have a basic space, but it's the welcome, it's the people, it's the personalities that's going to create the atmosphere and create that connection.
Is there something, John, that is so I want to do the opposite. It's the community, it's the welcoming, it's the hospitality. If somebody walks into a pub and behaves in a certain way, is it you're automatically kicked out, mentally or physically? Like that
you
is
can
super
be,
offensive.
I would say you would be shunned more than anything, and you never want to be shunned,
right?
Or you never want to be ignored. The worst thing that could happen to you is to be ignored. You'd probably be ignored, and because you don't get a reputation for being welcoming and hospitable by kicking people out. You just kind of gently point them in a different direction.
Which brings me to
if that doesn't work, then you directly point them in a different direction.
Let's talk about humor. So humor is a very familiar, central to the Irish experience. Self-deprecation, also like there's a way that Irish humor can make fun of themselves, but also be very biting in a clever way. Like how did you experience that growing up? And because you're a pretty funny guy.
Thank you, Steve. I would like to think that the first 20 minutes of this show would clearly demonstrate humor without it having to be brought up directly. However, I digress.
We say authentic
yeah, we're
humorist.
going to authentic.
Yes. Are you authentically funny? I'm like, well, if you're not picking up on it, I would have to say let's have a longer conversation.
I want to know how it goes in with your family, like how you were raised.
So I'm one of 5. There's 5 kids in my family, so we were a small family growing up, and 5. I had 3 brothers, all younger. I'm the oldest, so I'm primed for all sorts of humor, shall we say. And it's a coping mechanism. Again, I would point towards when you're invaded, when your culture is being challenged, you have a number of options. You can react violently, you can react thoughtfully, or you can react with humor, or you can react with all 3, because all are options on the table. When you react with humor, it's very confusing to your opponent. And there is nothing more satisfying than confusing your opponent, because you're leaving them wondering, did he just insult me? I'm not sure. And so to me, that is the greatest victory in any situation. So I know this is the Kindness Chronicles. If you can think of a way to submit your opponent through humor, you have definitely picked up some sort of Irish trait.
Yeah, to me, I think that is the lesson of this episode.
I think so too.
Is that, if you use that the inner Irish in you to disarm somebody and maybe even criticize them through a clever use of humor, mission accomplished. You've got some Irish in you. And I do want to take exception with your comment about not many Irish people in the Twin Cities. I mean, we might not be born in Ireland, but God damn it, I am half Irish, man.
This is
Both
the
of
way-
my
What I think is intriguing and still intriguing to me, as someone who's lived here for 27 years, and I have 3 children, so I have many conversations with them about this. The level of pride that people feel about their Irish heritage, no matter how far back it goes, is remarkable. And I think
it
it's
is.
quite unique to Irish culture, because our PR people did a heck of a
They
job
did.
when they first came over,
I think
taking this pasty white. There is a joke that the KKK in 1920 wanted to eliminate the Irish simply because they were too white. And
Okay, we're not doing
that
KKK
pasty white
jokes.
wasn't playing well. But again, using the humor and making people feel proud of their heritage, because essentially the Irish did not want to leave Ireland. They were forced to leave Ireland. Well, if we're going to be forced to leave, we have to make the most of it. And we have to retain our culture. Like I said, we're an indigenous people. So we feel this strong connection to our culture and a pride in our culture. And that's passed on from generation to the point where we're here today in 2026 and yourselves proclaiming, whether it be 1% or 23%,
Yeah.
that you're Irish and you're proud of it.
Yeah, we are, man.
Hey, John, you come here from Ireland. You're here 27 years. What is it that Minnesotans, what is it that St. Patrick's Day is on the horizon? What are the 1 or 2 things that most Americans get wrong when it comes to recognizing the wonderment of the Irish culture?
I don't think there is much. I think there is, and this is probably why I brought it up, that sense, that indigenous sense, that deep, rich culture. We have our own language. We've had it for thousands of years.
And they still teach it in the schools,
Our
right?
language and culture do not come in the form of green beer and corned beef. In fact, corned beef and cabbage is an Irish-American dish from New York, when the Irish immigrants couldn't afford the pot roast that they wanted. And so they went down to the Jewish delicatessen and started ordering corned beef and cabbage, and that has become an Irish American staple,
Yeah.
which is neither here nor there. So I would say, go beyond scratching the surface, and you'll find a rich history and a rich culture. I give an example. In the Irish language, Oscailga, there are 31 different words for rain, and a bit like the German language, where it describes what the rain is doing. So there's words for the rain that falls gently on the meadow. There's a rain that falls harshly on your head. There's rain from the east. There's mizzle. There's drizzle, etc. And yet there is one word for sun. So
That says it all right there.
that says it all. And I'll also point out that when the Irish economy for the first time actually improved in the 1990s, the art and culture that was coming out of Ireland at that time was an abomination. And so I'm grateful that we're back in a world of mayhem and chaos and discernment, because the art that'll come out of Ireland now once again will be very gratifying. We don't do well when we're doing well. We do better when there's struggle.
John, speaking of art, I watched The Commitments in preparation for this visit with you. Do you like that movie? And is there another good
I
Irish?
absolutely adore that
So
movie.
do I, yeah.
It's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Is there any others that you recommend?
There's currently a series on Netflix called How to Get to Heaven from Belfast. It's a little quirky.
It's a lot.
There's
It's a lot quirky.
Subtitles, and there's actually a couple of members of in the cast that were in The Commitments. That there's a darker element to it, but the humor in it is succinct and wonderful.
Yeah.
Is there tell me about tell us, you could just tell me specifically about the Ireland, Northern Ireland political situation, because
What?
Okay,
No,
so
no,
we
just-
have
no.
800 years left.
We're going to get into
Steve
this.
Brown
Just
told me we
like,
have very short time here.
No, there's a reason I bring this up, because Rory McIlroy, this goes to sports. Rory McIlroy is a guy from Northern Ireland, correct?
Yes, we would describe it as the north of Ireland. We do not recognize the entity of Northern Ireland. That is a British entity. So we call it the north of Ireland. So if someone calls it Northern Ireland, you know that they're leaning a certain way. Words, names,
This is why
the way
I'm
you
asking
comb
the
your
question.
hair, how many times you
Wow.
blink when you speak,
Wow.
everything relates back to your identity.
Wow.
So the
There you
reason I
go.
bring this up is it feels like the angst that once existed, even in our lifetime, isn't quite as strong as it used to be.
Well, we've moved on from just shooting each other
Yeah.
to maybe arguing more forcefully. And it is really the demographic. It's a demographic change, because when the entity of Northern Ireland was formed back in the 1920s, it was to protect. It was the ultimate gerrymandering. And now that we're very familiar with that term, gerrymandering
Oh,
was
boy.
created in the north of Ireland. That's where that idea first came from, as a way of protecting one tribe from another. And so the idea back then was that the Protestant pro-British majority would maintain that majority over an extended amount of time. The problem is Catholics love a good ride, i.e. sex, more than the Protestants, because they're less fussy about it. So we're having 8, 9, 10 kids. They're having 1, 2. And so we outbred them. And so basically it comes
Wow.
down to numbers. And now we've outnumbered them. And that reflects in the political shifts. And, you know, we're slow learners. We could have done with a couple of videos of Minnesota in the past month to show that resistance doesn't need to come in the form of violence. Sometimes it can just come in the form of just belief in who you are. And so we could have saved ourselves a lot of death and destruction. And whatever angst is there now, thankfully, is based more on political arguments and rather than on violence.
And there's your connection to the Kindness Chronicles. Suck it, Steve.
John Cosgrove, we couldn't have asked for a better guest. Thanks for joining us today for our St. Patty's Day week show.
I've never seen a microphone I haven't liked the look of yet. So any opportunity I'm going to take.
And
Thanks,
by
dude.
the
And
way,
I would invite you all to listen to the Brian Oak podcast in the coming weeks. I'll probably give you guys a shout out on
Oh,
there.
cool.
Because,
excellent. Thank you.
It's
Cool,
all
cool.
about the podcast ecosystem at the end of the
That's
day.
right. That's
Absolutely.
right.
We're all inviting each other.
Thank you, Mr. Cosgrove. Have
Off
a good
we go.
Thanks,
St. Patty's
John.
Day.
Yeah, thank you guys.